Gotta hurry and get it done. That's a great intro.
Okay. Better for me, but very blue. We look like we're in Twilight. Okay. Hello, welcome back to my channel. We're going to be doing a monthly recap today, but we're going to be doing it for 2 months because my coaching season just ended this month, so I've only read 6 books in the last 2 months. How many have you read?
Call it 17.
Jeez. Then you
And
try to lump series.
yeah, I mean, Kylie is so generous to let me do these book reviews with her, but I love to yap. So I will have a minimum of 1 sentence per
A minimum of
thought.
1 sentence per thought?
Well, maximum 1 thought. And one sentence.
Okay. You go first. You have so many. Do like 3.
Okay.
Do 3. Lump the...
So the first book of the month that I read was Project Hail Mary. 4-star, very fun sci-fi book. Tress of the Emerald Sea. We have the physical copy. One of Brandon Sanderson's secret projects that was released a couple years ago. 4-star. I love learning about the Cosmere. The next book was The Frugal Wizard Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. 3-star.
Also by Brandon Sanderson.
By Brandon Sanderson. It was a book.
Is that your 3 for this one?
Yes.
Okay. The first book I read in April was The Serial Killer Guide to San Francisco. I'll put the cover right here, but it was an ARC. When did it come out? I gave this book 3 stars. The basic plot was compelling, but it was like really, really long. Like too long for what it was. Oh my gosh. It felt like an ad read. Like at one point she was like, main character grabbed her Pilot Precise pen.
Oh, man. I feel like...
And then there was a couple other like brand names.
I remember you telling me about that when you were reading.
Bizarre. Like if somebody says like Diet Coke, you know, that's kind of like a worldwide like...
But it takes you out of reading.
And it didn't say like she was like very particular about her pens. Like if you talked about me, you'd say my G7.5, like that's the only pen she uses. And that could be like a personality trait, but they never mentioned it again.
No.
And like the guy with piercing blue eyes and a dimple was not in nearly as many pages as he needed to be. And there were like crime article spots like at the beginning of each chapter, and they made no sense and they were difficult to read. This book was hard to get through. That did not help my like reading slump, not reading very much. There was no point in this book where I felt like I couldn't put the book down. Maybe 3 stars is too high. Okay, your turn. Oh, it'll come out September 24th, 2024.
Next book I read was Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. One of the first books he ever wrote and got published. I gave it 4 stars.
10,000.
Yeah, Kylie was so surprised that there was a 10,000 word extra pages or whatever. 4-star read. I really liked the world building and just, again, I love learning more about the Cosmere. Then I read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Another...
Yumi. Y-U-M-I. You always say it like you, me, and the Nightmare Painter. It's very confusing.
Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I'm saying it. I gave this book a 5-star. I honestly loved this romance story. It was unbelievable. Made me cry. I'm not going to count that.
Just mention it.
I also read The Hope of Elantris. It was my first graphic novel that I listened to, so that was really fun. If you haven't done a graphic novel before, they're very entertaining. They're very, very fun.
As an audiobook?
Yes. Graphic audiobook. Was I saying graphic
You're
novel?
saying graphic novel.
Oh.
So was it a cartoon?
I also...
Was it a cartoon?
No.
Okay, so it was words, but graphic
I was gonna
audio...
redo it. I was gonna redo it.
Okay.
I don't know if
I'm not
this,
cutting any of that out.
I don't know if this really counts, but I also, it was audio. It was a graphic audio book, Hope of Elantris, and it's like 20 pages, but the graphic audio book was like 30 minutes. And I just listened to it as I worked out, and it was very entertaining. So if you haven't done a graphic audio book, try it out.
Explain what that is.
Basically, it has like sound effects, different voice acting, music. I think the line that they say for the company that recorded it was like, "It's a movie in your head."
That's how reading usually is for me.
So there's some more books that
So it's not graphic like it's violent, and it's not graphic like a graphic novel.
It's just a good description.
Yeah.
They do a very good job describing the reading.
Okay. The next book I read was Wild Love by Elsie Silver, which was an obvious 5-star. I love Elsie Silver. I wrote in my review that this couple is so awesome, but nobody beats Rhett and Summer from Flawless. They have my heart and soul, honestly. But this trope was my brother's best friend, and usually I hate those because the whole time I'm just like, the brother's gonna lose it. Like, Done and Dusted is a similar trope, and they get into like a physical fight, and it makes me feel so angry. And like the brother that gets into a physical fight is a father. It's just kind of like, get your shit together. But in this one, a little bit of spoiler alert, I guess, they start dating. Well, that's not a spoiler. But he tells the brother, he goes, "I'm in love with your sister." And he goes, "Yeah, dude, I've met you before."
Aww.
And then he like texts his sister later that night, and it's like, if I could create the ideal person for you to date, it would be Ford. And it's just like, that's what, like, it's your best friend, you know? You should want them to date your best friend. You should have a good best friend. So that made it a lot better than that trope often is, but 5 stars. Elsie's always 5 stars.
The next book I read was Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this 5 stars. I really fell in love with the characters, and the magic system is fascinating.
Good job.
Then I got 2 short stories. They're both in Arcanum Unbounded by Brandon Sanderson. This book basically just has, it's a collection of Cosmere novels. Is the best way to explain it.
It's a brick.
It is. What? I read The Emperor's Soul. It was just like more Cosmere building. The story to me was kind of boring. It was very slow paced. 3-star. Again, it just expanded on like the world of Elantris. Is that 2 or 3? That's 2. And then another one was The 11th Metal. This is a prequel to Mistborn trilogy. It was a 3-star read. It was really kind of all right. But it had just one cool action sequence, and that was about it.
Okay. The next book I read was Right Where We Left Us, which is another arc that comes out June 18th this year by Jen Devon. I gave this book 3 stars. It was not my favorite. It gives Magnolia Parks vibes, so a lot of my like notes are negative sounding towards the couple, but also Magnolia Parks was like a fun read, but you don't want them to be together. Or maybe you do, but I didn't. And this couple, I was like, y'all got to get therapy and get some distance, because this is not. But there was one part of this book that like shook me to my core. They're like having like an argument, and he's like hiding from everybody that he's going back to school. And she's like, "Okay, explain to me why you're in the city 3 days a week." And he's just like, no. And she goes, I want you to remember this moment because this is the moment where you could have stopped a miscommunication and you chose not to.
Damn.
That's the only time she humbled him this whole book. But I was like, tell
That's a star,
him.
right? That's earning one more star right there.
There's a star just for that line. It was crazy.
That's awesome. This book I was so excited to read because in high school for one of our classes we read this book, and it was one of the more like adult books I had ever read up until that point. And I was so invested in the story, and it blew my mind when we read it in high school. So I had this nostalgic like feel to it, and I wanted to reread it. And this book is The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Cormac McLagan.
And I know a lot of people like have a lot of high praise for Cormac McCarthy, and I also respect the dude. But this was a boring book for me. Yes, there was beautiful lines in there, and there was a lot of commentary about humanity. However, I was so bored, and I was dragging my feet to finish this book. I gave it a 3-star. I would have given it 1 or 2, but the last like couple pages is just like a gut punch, and it's really beautiful. But the rest of it, I just couldn't justify how bored I was. So that's my tangent for this video, but man.
How you feel while reading it is arguably more important than how you feel about the ending.
Mm-hmm. The next book, technically it's 3 different volumes, but it's one of the Brandon Sanderson like graphic novels. It's like a comic book.
Gotcha.
It's called White Sand, and I read the 3 volumes. I honestly really enjoyed this world. It's again set in the Cosmere. Really, really fun magic system, and some very interesting and integral characters to the Cosmere are introduced in this. So I gave the first one a 3, and the second 2 4 stars.
Okay. The next book I read was Tress of the Emerald Sea, which I gave 5 stars as well. It says that it's like Princess Bride and Stardust. I don't know what Stardust is by Neil Gaiman, but this is narrated by a character who in my mind talks like David Tennant. So it took me a little longer to get through this book because I wasn't just kind of like, it's like actively narrated. I think it's more like Tale of Despero, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I've read that book at least a dozen times because it's very second person. I will say, I didn't want to take off a star for this because maybe I'm just too smart. I guessed the twist within 30 pages. When did you figure it out?
As it was happening.
Really?
Pretty much.
Maybe it might be because I read primarily romance books. But anyway, it was really, really fun. The characters were really fun. The main character was like, it feels like Up. Like part 1 is like really heavily emotional, and then it's like, it just cuts. Something terrible happens and just cuts.
I watched a TikTok yesterday or today. It might have been today. I might have sent it to you. This guy also finished Tress and was like, I just pictured this movie, especially like the first part, as a Muppet movie. And that would be so good. It's just so whimsical.
I would like to point out, however, that they call her Tress because of her hair, but her given name is Glorf. That's on the first page when I almost put down the book. Your turn.
I was like, please keep reading.
I was like, he had all the names in the world.
The last 2 of like Cosmere books that I read were also in the Arcanum Unbounded. Was Shadow for Silence in the Forest of Hell. This is supposed to be like a thriller. I found it
thrilling.
All right. It was just, again, like a kind of a slow drag for me. I primarily read it just to get more knowledge of the Cosmere, is what it is. And then Sixth of the Dusk by Brandon Sanderson, another Cosmere novella This one was exciting. There was some really like future things going on, like the future Cosmere. So it kind of is setting the stage for some future projects that gets me really excited. Can we just go through these real quick?
Are those your last ones?
Yeah.
No, because I have a couple more. Okay. Next book I read was Just for the Summer by Ali Jimenez. This is book 3 in the Part of Your World series, but it's the only one I've read. But I gave it 5 stars. It's so good. It has such like a bizarre way that they like meet and get together. Basically, he posts on Reddit an "Am I the asshole?" and reveals that he has a curse where every girl he dates, when they break up, the next guy she dates is her soulmate and they get married. And our female main character reads it and is like, OMG, I have that same thing. And so she like DMs him and they message back and forth. And then they decide, hey, let's date for a month. And they like go over like the trends in their things. So they're like, all right, 4 dates, 1 kiss, break up, and then we'll go find our soulmates. But they found it. And they're really, really cute. This is one of my favorite like golden retriever male characters.
It could play out to be a movie really easily in my mind.
Yeah, it really could.
Because I love a good book that has like a deadline on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 1 month, like there is a time frame.
Yeah.
And there is like things we have to do to get there. And like that kind of gives a lot of like tension and like it propels the plot forward for me. I feel like that's always what makes up a good story.
Elsie Silver does it a few times, especially in the Chestnut Spring series, and it does just like up the emotions.
We have to kiss before the summer solstice.
We can't kiss before the summer solstice, but we really want to.
All right. And then my last 3 books, I have basically finished all of the Brandon Sanderson Cosmere novels up to date. But I know Brandon Sanderson, he also helped finish the Wheel of Time series. And that got me very interested because I remember hearing a couple years ago before the TV show came out about this series, and it just scared the living daylights out of me because it's like a million billion books in one series. And from what I've heard online, the highs are really high and the lows are really low. So I was nervous, but I committed to read The Wheel of Time. So I'm currently on book 4. I'm doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. So I think the first book is such a great introduction.
I'll put his TikTok on the screen because he's been doing updates on every book.
Yeah, thanks. I've been book 1, 4-star, book 2, 4-star, and then book 3 was a 5-star for me. It just really like, I feel like it was a good trilogy. It could be almost like a complete trilogy, but
that's my issue with long series is that like every 3 books it feels like you could just stop.
Yeah.
Like that's what I feel about ACOTAR. I always call the first 3 the Feyre trilogy. Because like I'm glad you're still going, but I feel like it's a different series.
Yeah. But so far I'm really loving like the characters, the story, like the world. Like I feel like I'm really enveloped in this world. And something that I heard recently was it could be a blessing or a curse with the Wheel of Time, but you get to know like exactly what characters are wearing and like exactly their intentions because you spend so much time in the different POVs with these characters. So it's you really get to know them, which I am liking so far.
How many named characters are in the series?
What was it, like 1,000 or something?
Look up the stat. In One Piece is the first search. 2,787 distinctly named characters.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters, and what sucks is I'm on book 4 right now, and one of the characters just up and changed their name. They're like, oh, he doesn't go by that anymore, and I'm like, dude, like I've just committed this part of my brain to this name, and now you're just all of a sudden gonna change it to somebody else's name? Whatever. Keep comparing it.
There's only 31 named characters in the Lord of the Rings series.
I am excited to read Lord of the Rings.
There's over 700 in Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
But they drop names that never come up again. So
that seems to be the case with
I guess
Wheel
that's what
of
it means,
Time.
named characters. Okay. The last book I read was Eris Takes All by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Brogan. It only has her name on here on my review page. They wrote The Rough Draft. This was also an arc, and that'll come out June 4th, so like next week. But Eris Takes All is like promoted as Inheritance Games meets Ocean 11, and it is just that. I gave it 5 stars. I read it in one sitting. Like, I woke up pretty early one morning out of nowhere, and by the time Nathan woke up, I'd read the entire book. How many pages is it? But basically, it's about this girl who, her dad cheated on her mom, and she told her mom, and so they got divorced, and the dad never fought for custody, so she went with her mom. They got cut off from everything because of a prenup. Then the mom gets in a car accident where she barely survives, but like their hospital bills are like ridiculous. And then she gets invited to her dad's wedding to the person that the person that she cheated with, he was married for like 11 months in the middle, so this is his third wife, his first being her mom. And she basically plans this heist where she's going to steal a bunch of his money.
Jeez.
And there's one of her former teachers, there's a couple of her classmates, and when she gets there, her ex-boyfriend is there because the dad didn't remember that they broke up, and he's like trying to win her back, so there's like a lot going on, and it's really, really good. 368 pages.
That's impressive.
I read that quick. But one of the things I said in my review was like, there's no character left 2D. Like, every single character is super fleshed out, and you understand everything about them that you need to. It's really, really good.
Nice.
Tell them what book you're reading right now.
I am reading The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan.
Wheel of Time 4.
Yeah. I'm a little over halfway done, and the plot is getting very interesting. I feel like we've come so far, but they're setting the stage for things that are going to happen so much further away. So, very, very cool.
I'm reading Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, which is the sequel to Divine Rivals. I've said many times I'm afraid to read this book. Minor spoilers. Not a spoiler if you've read Divine Rivals, but it does start with a memory loss trope, and I hate those. It makes me absolutely furious. But it's okay right now. I just kind of want to know exactly what page he's going to remember, because he always does. They always do.
It's kind of one of those, I'm reading to figure out what happens rather than I'm actually enjoying the book.
Yeah.
That's how it was with a couple of those Cosmere novels.
Yeah. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.